episode of Ingrained Woodworks. Today, now that we have our machine set up in Easel, we're going to take some time to design a quick first Carve project, and then we're going to go ahead and run it. First, we're going to start by going to Easel in our web browser. And go ahead and sign in once you're there. And you'll see I've already created a file here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to work to recreate this file. So I'm going to create a new workpiece so that we can start from scratch here. And what we'll do first is we'll make sure that our machine is connected to our Easel software here. So you'll see mine just turned green, which means that it's connected. If you don't get your machine connected and you've followed all the steps previously, maybe if you moved to a different USB port or made some kind of change, that might be an issue. So you'll click the blue Carve button to go and enter that new COM port. If you need help identifying your COM port, you can check out the video of how to set this up in the video description. All right, so now we're ready. Our machine knows, or our Easel knows that our machine is connected. So we're going to start out with some text. So actually, you know what? We'll start with creating our workpiece here. So I actually already have some measurements in here from getting this ready for y'all. But basically, you're going to measure how wide your piece is, how long it is, and how thick it is. So in this case, my piece of cherry that I'm going to be using is 11.5 inches in width, and it's 7 inches in length and 1.02 inches thick. Now those width and lengths are actually a ½ inch shorter than my actual project, just because I wanted to maintain some space around the edge, just in case, so that I don't run out of the bounds of the material. And I may also trim it up on the table saw depending on how square the Carve turns out. Now, as far as material, here's where you'll select most of the materials that are in here work just fine. Basically, what this is designed to do is give some feeds and speeds starting points. So in this case, I'm working with cherry, so soft maple is pretty close as far as density. It's since cherry's not in there, it's not going to be perfect. You could also, for cherry, you could select walnut. They both mill up about the same. So we'll set up for walnut this time, and then we'll click off onto our project. Now we can go in here and we can add some font. So for our project, we want it to look like this one down here. So the Your Home SilverBack 6060, and then a SilverBack Gorilla. And I'm actually going to change this up a little bit. I noticed some issues with this Carve, and that's part of learning this type of software. But what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start by creating my text. And I used Homestead previously for the Your Home portion, and I really liked the way it looked. So we're going to do the same here. My text in there. All right, so Your Home. And then this next one where it said SilverBack was, I believe, bangers. So we're going to create a new text field. And yep, it was bangers. So we're going to select that, and we're going to type SilverBack. Let it catch up here. Good. Drag it over. And then the last part we're going to do is the 6060 portion, and we'll do it in bangers as well. Now, if this is bothering you and getting in your way, you can always click this double arrow here, and it'll shift the preview out of your way so that you can do some design work here. So what we're going to do, we're going to highlight all three of these pieces of text, and I want them to align to the right. So when they're all aligned, you'll see this pops up as an option. So we'll click Align to the right. We're also going to take and resize them all at the same time. So we'll bring them down, and then we'll bring them onto our workpiece a little bit further. All right, so far that looks pretty good to me. If you want to check your preview, you can always click the two arrows to bring this back, and that'll bring this across so you can see it. If you click detailed view here, it'll actually show a better preview of this particular workpiece. All right, and what we can see just from this preview here, it looks like it's carving really deep on these letters, and I don't want it to carve that deep. So we're going to bring back our edit pane here, and we're going to set up some of the cut settings. Now I want it to be the same settings for all of them, so I'm going to highlight this all, and then under cut, I'm going to change this. I don't want to go very deep at all. It doesn't take a lot of depth to create contrast, so I'm going to do actually I'm going to do 0.1 inches. That's not very deep, but it does create some good contrast. The next thing we need to do is we're going to bring in a silverback gorilla picture. Now, when it comes to bringing pictures into your project to carve, keep in mind that you can use any picture that you want for something that's personal use. If you're going to make a sign for you to be in your office or your room or your house, you can use whatever you want. As soon as you decide that you're going to sell it, you're going to make any money on it, then we have to assign credit, whether it be purchasing it, assigning some credit to where it came from. You definitely don't want to get tied up in any copyright suits, so just be mindful of that. So to get a picture here for a silverback gorilla, we're going to search for silverback gorilla clip art. Once that comes up, we'll select silhouette. I find that in a 2D carve, often a silhouette works the best. And you're just going to right click on the picture. So like I like this one right here. This is one I've been using. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to save image as. And when this pops up, we already had one downloaded, but we'll do silverback 2. Super easy. Now we'll jump back into Easel. Keep track of where that downloads to. If you don't have an idea of where it went, make sure that you track this and do the show in file so you can find it. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do import, image trace, and we're going to upload our file. And we're going to select silverback 2. And then click upload down in this bottom right. All right, so now we have our picture in here. You can play around with these settings. There's threshold, which will determine what outlying pixels are included in the image, what is not. Smoothing will help to round over edges where there may be pixel peaks. Invert will switch what is being cut and what's not being cut. And trace outline simply gives you an outline of the areas to be cut. Lots of different options there. You can play with it to see what gives you the best results. We're going to click import. And you see it brought our picture in. I'm gonna drop this tray down here. I don't want this open so we can have some more space to work. Now, my goal here is I want to get this as big as possible because some of these lines are pretty fine. And what I found is they don't like to carve very well, especially when we're running something like a 32nd inch bit. It's just too small. So we're actually I'm going to move your home up. Silverback up. And 60/60 up. We'll go ahead and we'll select those 3 again, and we'll align them to the right. And then we'll bring 60/60 up underneath. And one last time, align it to the right. All right, now we have some good clearance on this piece. Now on the Gorilla, we're going to set to that same 0.1. I don't want this to be deep. I just want it to give us some decent contrast. So 0.1, you'll see the lighter the color is here, the lighter your cut is going to be. Right. We'll make sure that this changed as well. There we go. So 0.1. So now you can see how I can see the difference between the letters and the picture here. So I knew something was off. So we changed them all to 0.1 now. And now what we can do is we can drag back in our preview. And it's generating here. Click detailed view. And this is going to give us an idea of what we're looking at. So you can grab and rotate and move this around so the light hits it in different directions. There's like a false light source in Easel, so you can see the shadows where your cut lines are. Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to use an 1/8 inch bit as our roughing pass. Now, I purchased some of these 1/8 inch end mills that are just cheap Chinese made end mills that they do a really good job with hogging out material in small carves like this. The thing is, they are really fragile. They do tend to break, so you can buy them in packs of, I think they come in packs of 10, and it's absolutely worth it to pick some up until you get used to using your machine and decide to invest in some higher end bits. But in my case, this is a fishtail upcut 1/8 inch, so we're going to select that. And what we can do here is we can actually see what the 1/8 inch bit is going to cut and what it's not going to cut by removing the detail pass here. So now by selecting the detail view with no detail bit selected, anything that shows up in red is not going to, if you click here on this ellipses and then uncut areas, all of this red is what's not going to be cut by the 1/8 inch bit, which is no big. That's why we use a secondary toolpath, and we're going to use a 1/16 inch. And we'll say that it's the fishtail spiral. It's actually a corn milling bit, and it's a little bit slower, so we'll be a little bit more conservative with the speeds here. So we'll click that and click off. Now when we click detailed view with uncut areas selected, we'll be able to see if any of those uncut areas remain at all. So you see here, there is some in the front of the face here. So in order to get rid of those, we'll see if there's maybe another bit selection that we can use. Here in this case, we could try and do a 60-degree V bit, and that may be able to get in there and take care of some of those points. Generate this preview again. All right. Yep. So the fact that we don't even see a checkbox here for uncut areas means that there are no uncut areas. So we'll go ahead and run a 1/4 inch shank 60-degree V-bit for this particular carve. I highly suggest picking one up. Pick up a 60, a 90, and maybe a 30. They are great for doing lots of different carves, especially sign making. They make life really easy. And then it's also going to, you'll see if we click and turn this, it's actually going to change the look of the lettering here. So as we zoom in, try and drag it over, it's actually going to round the edge, or not round it, but put a bevel on the edge of the lettering. It's up to you if that's the look that you want. If not, there is a way to eliminate that as an option, which would simply be to make the letters their own workpiece. So what you could do duplicate, and then in this duplication, once that's selected, you could delete the gorilla out of here and delete the detail bit. That 1/8 inch bit should be plenty to be able to get into all the spaces. Let's check and see what it leaves out. Looks like some tiny little slivers at the edges of some of the lettering. Not a big deal though, you could carve that separate. And then what you would do is you would take, on this particular page, you would take the lettering off altogether so that you're just carving this, which is its whole own carve, and then you would come in and you would carve just the letters. So it's however you want to do it. Depends on your particular taste. So I'm happy with this, and I'm ready to carve. Or actually, I'm ready to set some cut settings, because if we carve right now, we will not have fun. So whenever you open this up, it's always going to come up with some automatic feeds and speeds based on your machine settings and predetermined information for the material and the bits that you select. You could run this. You'll learn as you go what works well and what does not. In this particular case, the 1/8 inch upcut spiral bit, I like to run it at 50 inches a minute, and it can run faster, but it depends on the material that you're running it in. I run a faster plunge rate simply because I run a plunge, and I don't like waiting for the plunge every time when it's set on a slower plunge rate. If you're running a vertical plunge, then you would want to select a slower feed rate there. And since this is only a 1/10 of an inch deep, we're going to set the depth per pass to cut all the way in this particular cut, which is absolutely fine with me. Spindle speed doesn't matter because we have a control knob to control our spindle speed, not it's not controlled inside the controller itself. For the detail pass with this particular 60-degree V-bit, I know we can run it pretty fast, so I'm also going to run it at 50 inches a minute, 12 inch per minute plunge rate, but in this case, I'm just going to run it as a standard vertical down because it does cut well on a standard plunge. And then the depth per pass on this one, we're going to change to 0.1 as well. And we can close out of cut settings. Now, if we click simulate here, it's going to tell us how long it estimates that this particular cut is going to take based on the speeds and feeds that we selected. Now, this is simply based on their experience. Every machine's a little bit different, so it might not work out exactly the same. Let's see what this has to say here. It's finishing up the detailed toolpath. It looks like 10 minutes to do the roughing, and then 42 minutes to do the detail. That's not terrible. We'll go ahead and run that. It's pretty lousy for a detail pass that really doesn't need to hog out a lot of material. We could actually change, in this case, I'm going to change this to closer to 80 inches a minute. And we are cutting the full depth at once. So we'll exit out of that, and we'll see what that changes our time to here. All right, so it looks like it did improve our times a little bit here. 10 minutes for the roughing, 37 minutes for the detail. So that's pretty good. I think we'll run with that. All right, so we're going to go up and we're going to click Carve to start our carve. Have us home the machine if we haven't already homed it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. It was already in the home position, but why not? We'll make sure that it's there. So it's taking a moment to home. Almost there. Perfect. Now it says to enter our exact material thickness. I already took some measurements on this, but this particular piece of material is 1.02 inches. All you have to do is grab a pair of calipers, something like this. It's going to give you a really nice readout. These aren't very expensive. I'll link it down in the description. They're available on Amazon. They're usually next day delivery for the US, at least in my area. So they're cheap. They're not the best on the market, but they're good enough for what we're doing here. If you want a really good set, you could grab something like the Mitutoyos. They're fantastic, and you'll really like those, and they'll last a lifetime. So we're going to confirm the material thickness here, and then it says to make sure that our material is fully secure before we continue, and this is really important. Basically, when you secure your material, I secured this down with double stick tape, and it's just basic X-fasten double stick tape. And if it's really hot out, sometimes this tape doesn't like to stick, and this will get a little bit of a wiggle to it because the glue on it's just a little too tacky. If for some reason your material moves at all, fasten it a different way or refasten it. If it can move, it will move when it's carving, and that's the last thing you want is a messed up project because of something you could have avoided from the beginning. Our material is secure, so we'll click Material Secure, and then we're going to choose our roughing pass because we are working with our roughing bit first. Click Continue. It's going to confirm the bit that we want to use, and indeed we want to use the 1/8 inch upcut. And then it's going to have us zero our X, Y, and Z axes. So first we're going to start with the Z, and we're going to jog the machine into our material. So I'm actually going to speed this process up by entering a higher number here. So we're going to go 5 inches at a time and run the machine up to our material and then over close to our Z, or our zero position. Get this all crossed here. Oh, passed her up a little bit. All right. Let's run it back. And basically we're just trying to hover over top of the board because we don't want to zero off the bed. We want to zero off the board. So we're going to confirm that it's over the bed. We already have our lead plugged in. We're going to attach the clip to our bit. And then we're going to click Clip Attached. It's going to have us take our plate and touch it to our bit. And once we've done that, we're going to say that the touch plate is in place and that we've placed it on top of the material here. And we're going to click Start Probing. Perfect. All right, so we touched down. It retracted its 1/4 inch. We're good to go. We're going to move our probe out of the way. Say that the Z probe is put away. And then we're going to set our X and Y zeros. So we're going to jog the machine. Actually, I clicked the wrong button there. It's going to have us redo the probe just because it does it all in one step instead of splitting it up here. So we confirm the position. The clip is attached. We're going to touch for contact. It's happy with that. Touch plate is in place. Start probing. It drops our 1/4 inch. Retracts. Put our Z probe away. And now we're going to go ahead and position our machine. Now what I've found is if you go ahead and bring the Z down, you have a little bit more control over making sure that this is set to the corner that you want it to be on. So we're going to set our X, now our Y, and I'm happy with that XY0. Now it's going to have us turn on our spindle. Since we have it set to automatic, it turns on right away. If we did not have it set on automatic, we would have to activate our spindle ourselves. And we say the spindle is on and it's ready to go. We're going to go ahead and click Carve, and it'll be off to the races. Alright, so now our roughing pass is complete, and you'll see here it comes up with Carve complete, and we can tell it everything went great. We can save these data points for this particular bit, and then we can exit. Now we're going to do our detailed bit pass, so we can click through all these things we already did. Detail pass, next. We're confirming that we have the 60-degree bit there, and now we'll go ahead and change out our bit. So I will remove my 1/8 inch collet and bit, and I will go ahead and slide in my 1/4 inch collet with my 60-degree V bit. Alright. Now we have to jog this slightly back onto our workpiece so we can set our 0. And we'll raise this up just to make sure we clear. Alright. Now we're going to click probe to set our 0. We're going to confirm that it's in the right spot. We attach the clip. We're going to make contact so it knows it has a good communication. Touch plate is in place. And then let it start probing. Perfect. Now we'll take this away. And we're going to lower our Z height so we can figure out where our actually, we're going to use the last XY0 because it should be centered on the bit anyhow. So we're going to utilize that same 0. Turning on the spindle. Spindle is on. And we're going to carve away. And there it is. We're all done. That went great, so we'll go ahead and save these settings. And let's take a look at our final product. I'm going to home the machine so it gets out of my way. And there it is. That's our final product. Turned out fantastic. One other place that we can look while we're in Easel that is definitely beneficial to look at is when you click on machine, you can come down here to advanced, and that'll give you some information as far as step overs. You can set this to step over really whatever percentage you want. But what you'll see is sometimes you get issues like this where the bit path can be seen, which really isn't a big deal. It usually sands out pretty well, and most of the time it's just the way that the light reflects off of it. So it's not something that you can really feel in the wood. But if you want to eliminate that, you can do 90% of your depth at 40% and come back with with another cut and do the last 10% of your cut with say 10% step over, and those are going to be so small that you're not going to be able to see them anymore. So that's a good way to do that. And then same with the step over here for the detailed bit. Both are really good pieces of information to have. So definitely take a look at that. Don't change them though if you don't understand what they are. It will definitely not turn out the way that you want it to if you change these, like the safety height here. Changing this determines how high the bit comes up above whatever your 0 point was. So if you're doing something inside of a pocket and you set your 0 as the bottom of the pocket and you only set it for 0.15 inches and your pocket is 3/4 of an inch deep, when it goes to leave that cut to return to 0, it's going to plow right through your material. Or when it goes to go from one pocket to another, it'll plow right through your material. So this is where you can set that safety height here. And we'll do a project here soon that involves not only using the step over, but also that safety height so that you can see how to use them effectively. But thank you for joining me for this episode. I hope that you learned a lot. I will try and shorten up the videos here in the future now that we're through some of the more complex procedures, and get you some good content that you can watch in around 10 minutes or less. Thanks for joining me. Have a good day.